Focus on your county. Make sure you got a squared away sheriff. Make sure you got a good county commissioners that are real constitutionalists. If you don't, get them out of office, put ones in that are. Focus there. Make sure you got, like I said, a neighborhood watch. Get to know your neighbors. Be ready to support each other and help each other, and be ready to support the police directly if you need to. Make sure that they know you have their back. A strong community like that, you can do that even with a full-time job. You can do these things. Join your volunteer fire department, or if you have a CERT program, Citizens Emergency Response Training. If your state has that, take part in it. Search and rescue, whatever it is you have in your community that you can do, you should do it. Or you're supposed to be in your militia. We're supposed to be mustering on the green and drilling every weekend, right?
Yeah, well, Alex always says the Second Amendment doesn't mean anything if you don't know how to use your firearm. So, I mean, there are those people out there that really, those yuppie types that do have a gun out there, they never go to the range. They don't know how to handle their firearm. Learn how to use it. Yeah,
go to an Appleseed class. Go to Appleseed, I think it's appleseed.info. But there's, it's free for veterans. No, I'm sorry, it's free for women and children and current serving police officers. For everybody else, it costs $70 for 2 days of good basic rifle marksmanship. So that's a good program.
All right, let's go to our next caller. Let's go to Jeff in Utah. Jeff, you're on the line.
How you guys doing?
Good.
I'm watching the Super Bowl right now, and there's the commercials are really disturbing this time. They've got a Doritos commercial where a dog has an RFID shock collar on.
Actually caught that one. Actually caught that one. I was in the break room.
He runs and he puts it on the guy, and then it shocks him on the floor, and people laugh about it.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, for those that don't know, dogs have two kinds of collars now. You can get the one where you have the invisible fence. They can't go outside. But they also have the bark collar. And the commercial is that the dog takes the bark collar off and puts it around the neck of the human. He talks and he gets shocked. Really, I don't know if that's predictive programming. I don't know if that's getting us ready for shock collars. I do know that they have proposed, the TSA has proposed, that people getting on a plane should wear a wrist shock collar to ensure their safety so that if you're a terrorist, they can subdue you with this shock collar. That could be the new America. It's not bad enough, they want to see your naked body through these scanners and possibly radiate you with cancer. Now they want you to wear a shock collar. How do you feel about the shock collar, Stewart?
Oh, on the plane?
Oh, yeah, the arm shock collar. Yeah.
That's just absurd.
It's out of control. But you know what?
Why not have a collar that will inject darts into your neck and just kill you? And the CIA can just say, "Oh, we think he's a terrorist."
We really are getting to that level with all these uses of drones. You're not seeing it domestically, but it is. I mean, I got one of those in my stack where you're seeing more and more drone use by the United Kingdom and the United States and NATO, where Afghanistan, Iraq, and Pakistan. And really what I see is a beta test because they are bringing these drones home. They're already using them in Miami.
Well, they also said that they are targeting U.S. citizens who they suspect of being part of Al-Qaeda abroad. And the question people should have is, will that make a difference if they're here at home? There's no legal distinction between abroad and at home if you're a so-called unlawful enemy combatant.
Yeah, and I don't think people are going to understand it until these drones are judge, jury, and executioner. Because at first it's going to be, we're using drones to stop crime. Then all of a sudden they're going to be the enforcement arm, and hey, the drone told him to stop, and the guy didn't stop, and he ran. We were forced to gun him down. We didn't want to gun him down. Right. And when we say we gun him down, it's a guy sitting there with an Xbox controller looking at a screen, controlling a drone, so disassociated from the human life he takes.
He used his best judgment to determine this guy was a threat, and so he blew up a family SUV.
And that's why we have to stop these things while they're still abroad. All right, let's go to our next caller. Let's go to Julio in Illinois. Julio, you're on the line. Yes, sir.
What's going on, Jason? I'm somewhat watching the Super Bowl, listening to your show and Alex's. Quickly, this past week I saw the Department of Homeland Security in my hometown here in Macomb. There was a shooting or a hostage situation. They brought out this unified command post, and some of the officers were mentioning that it was a place where the officers come and stay warm. But I looked up info on this, and pretty much it's like a cellularized truck. It's kind of like the vehicle from V for Vendetta, surveilling all your...
Well, Homeland Security has exploded in a big way. I had somebody out in Pennsylvania send me 4 pictures of a new Homeland Security vehicle in his hometown. And what you're seeing is, first of all, Homeland Security was set up after 9/11. It was already on the back burner. They already had the basic infrastructure in place to launch the program. Okay, so in other words, it wasn't 9/11 that brought us Homeland Security. They talked about it for years. So then Homeland Security is put into place, but in the last 18 months, they've said, well, you know, it's not really going to be this agency that's independent of itself. It was absorbed by the National Security Agency. That should tell you something. This thing was set up from the beginning to look at American citizens doing things in this country. And now, exactly, as the enemy, and now it has been absorbed by the National Security Agency publicly. What's your stance on Homeland Security? We know that Ron Paul has said if he would be elected, he would get rid of that and many other illegal bureaucracies.
Well, I think he's right. And like I always tell people is that all of the infrastructure was put in place under the Bush administration to supposedly go after Islamic terrorists is now being turned inward on the American people. And so all the people that cheered and supported what Bush did are now having the guns pointed at them.
Yeah, and they were pointed at them before. We just had less leaks. We didn't have all these MIAC reports coming out.
But now the rhetoric itself is coming. Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah. Well, now you're seeing it on the local level in these fusion centers. I mean, that MIAC report was just one of hundreds. I mean, we went over the Virginia Fusion Center document,
right.
And I can't remember what the other one was, but I mean, it was a 200-plus page document where they admitted, yes, we are targeting Christians. Yes, if you go to this school, you may be being watched. If you go to this website, we are watching you. You go to the Southern Poverty Law Center site, and there's just a total list, including Infowars.com, of sites that are racist. Oh, my God. Final segment coming up with Stewart Rhodes after this. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas, PrisonPlanet.tv, Infowars.com. All right, we are back. Final segment with Stewart Rhodes, and we were just kind of discussing in the break here, right before we went on, how the First Amendment is more important than the Second Amendment. And you mentioned Thomas Paine. And how, you know, I mean, Thomas Paine, author of Common Sense, very vocal during his time. Yeah, I mean, this guy was out there really screaming bloody murder. And you just mentioned that, you know, the war was won before the first shot was even fired, before we even entered the battlefield, because it was in the minds of men. I mean, speak to that. How powerful is the pen?
Well, as the saying goes, you know, the pen is mightier than the sword, and nothing's more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And that's how we revolted and won against the British Empire, because the people understood the bedrock fundamentals. I mean, before that, you had scholars like you had now I'm drawing a blank. You had what was his name?
While you're thinking of that name, Stewart, I just want to say that I'm proud of us on Super Bowl Sunday. Not like we're sacrificing anything. We're in here concerned about the state of this country and for the real game, the real fight for liberty. I just wanted to point that out. It was good having you here with us.
Oh, thank you very much. No, it was Algernon Sidney I was thinking of. And
okay.
Also, of course, now I'm drawing a blank again. Oh, John Locke. Okay. That was the philosophical basis for the revolution, but that had not been put in practice yet. And so what happened with the American people is they had the opportunity, a window of opportunity, to put into practice the fundamental principles of the liberty of the people. Because before then, the sovereign was the king. It was a divine right of kings. And supposedly it was God gave power to the king, who gave power to the lords, and down at the very bottom was the people. Well, the founders put in practice the philosophical idea that, look, it's from God to us directly, our natural rights, and the sovereignty of the people. That's why they had the cry of no king but Jesus, because to them, only God was above them. The people come first, and then below that is the government.
Absolutely. And anybody who wants to worship, that's why it sickens me that Europe still has these families out there that the Queen, I mean, people don't understand. The Queen is a real political position. This woman has shadow government control. They just released some documents just a month ago saying that she was going to relinquish some of her powers to Prince Harry. Prince William, as he comes up. These people get briefed by Parliament. They can seat the Prime Minister. I mean, they have actual powers that are derived from nothing but us actually allowing it. We give them the power. God is not giving the royal family power. I'm sorry. It's impossible.
Right.
It's ludicrous. It's insanity. It's talk about massive mind control and brainwashing.
So we rejected that idea. We don't consider it absurd, the notion that some king has a divine right to rule over us and treat us like his property, and yet we have this weird devotion to majority rule. And so they say the majority of the people have spoken. They've elected me, the president, or whoever it is, and now therefore I can go and be basically a king. But supposedly what with the authority of the people.
Well, according to John Hugh, who wrote these memorandums that it's okay for us to torture people.
John Hugh?
Yeah, he's
my buddy.
Yeah, he's a good guy, that guy, let me tell you. I mean, he sits up there. I look at this guy. He must weigh like $130. He's this little Asian man, and he sits there with such, frankness that, no, the president does have the power to do what he wants, and if we're going to torture people in front of them for terrorism reasons, we'll do so. And in the papers, it actually talks about crushing a young person's genitals in front of their parents. And then you see...
That was during a debate.
Yeah.
Right.
Someone brought it up, that white paper, and he's like, well, of course.
What he said was, well, it would depend upon why the president thought he needed to do that.
Yeah, but then you look at the pictures they published of Guantanamo Bay, okay? I mean, we had people with half of their heads eaten off from the dogs they were sicking on. They had the mound piles. There were some really, really gruesome pictures they didn't show us in this country that were published overseas that I have that... They blow my mind to this day. And then on top of those pictures, the Senate came out in 2004 and said they'd seen video of what happened there, and they were disgusted. Those videos are still under the veil of national security. We may never see them. Folks, wake up. If you're out there and you're a veteran and you want to do something right, go to oathkeepers.org and sign up. Anything quickly, Stewart?
Well, even if you're just an average citizen who's never sworn an oath before, never served, you can join as an associate member as well.
Awesome. All right, we'll be back after this. It's the InfoWarrior, PrisonPlanet.tv, Infowars.com.